Hello and welcome to Turning Point Tactics, the competitive Kill Team 40k podcast, focused on giving you the strategies and tactics to siege initiative every turning point. I'm your host Ryan, and I'm joined by the chaos cult of meta chasing to my Fogel Ravager's 15 minutes of fame, Conor. How you doing this evening, Conor?
I'm okay, thanks, Ryan. And I'll tell you what else is okay. The amount of subscribers we've got.
Oh yeah, oh it is. We've actually managed to hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, so thank you so much for hitting that subscribe button. It means so much to us, and it means that actually we are now effectively monetized by YouTube. I don't know how much money we'll get, probably not much, but it's, you know, every little helps, and that's a massive
100%.
thank you so much to you.
Thank you.
It's pretty cool, and obviously the Patreon is growing pretty consistently as well, which is also great to see. I think we might be one of the fastest growing Kill Team patrons out there. We're over 50 now, and we keep going up, which is awesome. So the Discord is definitely getting
Stuff.
Yeah, and the Discord's getting more and more active, and people are sharing information, and it's pretty cool when you go on there. You just hear people just like sharing all their individual tips and tricks, and that's exactly what we wanted from it, really. So it's pretty awesome to see that how quickly that's growing as well in comparison to what
I know you don't care, Ryan, but I like the hobby pictures that are in there and people building and painting.
I like to put it, I actually do appreciate good hobby. I just don't like doing it myself. You know, like
okay.
it's like I like to look at it and go, wow, yeah, that is something that I will never be able to achieve. Although
maybe I could pay them to do that to my models.
yeah, exactly. I did actually, you know, I don't want to brag here, Conor, but I'm gonna flex on you. I did actually make and base spray paint all of my Chaos Cult models.
Took photographic evidence to prove it.
I had to prove it. I had to in the group. I was like, "Look, guys, I did it. I did hobby." Now we can acknowledge the fact that they're going to sit just based on a shelf for the next 6 months, and that's fine, all right. But in my little world of delusion, maybe at one point I might apply some contrast paint to them and get them done.
At the minute, it's Arctic camouflage, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's a snow scheme. You know, people wouldn't get it. I did joke that, you know, if you do spray paint them black and then grey and then a top down on white, that is technically 3 colours. So,
that's all the tournament demands.
That's all the tournament. You know, I don't make the rules, all right. If they want to change the rules to make it better, then they probably should. But until then, you can embrace the Arctic cult meta from my Chaos Cult team. I jest. I'm not going to play Chaos Cults just yet. Probably. Well, everyone knows I'm an Inquisition, or Imperial, not Inquisition, but Imperial fanboy. So Inquisition's definitely going to be on the radar.
Talk about Imperium, and I'm going to drift a little bit out of discussion here. But have you seen in 40k that they've been releasing some 10th edition indexes?
Yeah, they have. So pretty big news. They've been obviously releasing those indexes rather periodically throughout the week, and today was the Imperial Day. So we got to see. Well, they had Space Marines before, but we got to see obviously what the Imperial Agents would be like, and what's really cool actually from that Imperial Agents data sheet is that you can see every single one of your models from Kill Team has a place in 10th edition. So I think that's really awesome that they've effectively said that they're respecting the community, and you can take your models and you can put them on the table and they immediately have a place. And like your Kazakin, you can get your Kazakin and you can put them on the table. And they have Ballistic Skill 3, right? So
very contentious point.
Very contentious. Like there is just like Elliot just laughing in the background like a evil maniac as he's trolled into there. But so many people want to do Ballistic Skill 3. Well, if you do, you can play it in 10th edition, and not just that, it gets better because they get a free order, so they can immediately make themselves Ballistic Skill 2.
They need to make some law now that they're all long-sighted, so when they get into close quarters combat, they can't shoot straight.
They've got it's like you give them all like really weird glasses where as long as you're far away, they've got it.
Like it's bang on bullseye, but when it gets close, that's it. No chance.
Maybe it's about the scrutiny of it. Like maybe when they're surrounded by other Imperial Guard guys, that they feel fine and can hit on twos. But when it's just them and the sergeants like, watching them do it, yeah,
there's no commissar. That's it. There's no commissar.
There's no commissar. This is what we need. The buff they need is a commissar to get them back to Ballistic Skill 2.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's pretty cool. And there's loads of like teams that I'm looking at thinking, you know what, that could be quite interesting to play. And I love the idea of theory crafting 40k. But as I've just said, the legions of grey, unpainted or now based, I guess, plastic on my shelf says that maybe I'm not going to be getting into full 40k anytime soon. But we could do combat patrol. I actually do have a combat patrol of Custodes, so maybe we'll do a battle report on that if when it comes out, and we'll see if that's any fun or not. But yeah, anyway, that's not why we're here today, Connor. Although it is good fun. Obviously, today we're here to talk about Chaos Cults, right? Because
they snuck under the radar, didn't they?
Yeah, it's one of those things where they had the big distraction Khan effects of the Felgor Ravages with the beasts that just don't die. And
distracting, very distracting.
And then in the background, the little cult was just doing their thing. And before you know it, they've mutated into full-on torment on the competitive scene, and we're all trying to deal with this cult problem.
Oh my god!
Because we let the cult get to turning point 5, and everyone knows you get 5 torments on turning point 5. So that's the risk that you run playing that late game strat. So, but no, they are a very, very strong team, and I think if you're not going to a tournament with a game plan on how to deal with them, then you're not going to be successful, because they are taking over the meta a little bit at the top tables, and I think it's probably safe to say they're overtuned. And I think they're overtuned for a few reasons. I think it's just worth going through it and then just talking about them a little bit, because I think it's useful for people to sort of understand why we come to the conclusions we come to, and see that it's not just baseless. So a little while ago, I forget which episode it was. It must have been like episode 5 or something. We were talking about kill team construction, and what you look for when you're assessing a kill team, right? And there was obviously the 3 main tenets was going to be like the offensive capability, the defensive capability, and their mission play. And so I've not played many games with cults, so I don't want to just say this is just my opinion. But what we did do is speak to the rest of the Turning Point Tactics team who have played quite a few games with these guys and be like, hey, so what's your thoughts? What's good? What's bad? Weirdly, apparently they don't have any negatives. So that might be the first bit of worry when you look at a team is when you say to someone, what are you really scared of? When they just say nothing. I'm scared of nothing. I embrace the carnage. So yeah,
I like this team. Are there any more boxes out there I can get?
Yeah, exactly. You're just at some point you'll be sneaking into my room and taking off the shelf, won't you? But they sound right up your street, to be fair, because you can play very aggressive with them, and you can play a lot of melee, and they remove what is the standard negatives of a melee team, right? So. And this is kind of like one of the things. So Felgor Ravages, that they broke the interaction in Kill Team where the attacker has agency, right? So they remove that from the game. This team sort of plays differently in a sense that the balance between melee and shooting was always that shooting you would do less damage, but it'd be sort of like risk free. And melee would be you would do more damage, but it would come with it an associated risk. So these guys let you do the more damage and then remove the risk element of the melee. You're probably thinking like, oh, wait, how are they doing that? And the answer is if they do damage in melee but don't die, then they can mutate and fully heal. So let's say you had a melee specialist normally and you charged them into a model and you fought away, but your 7 wounds, they do 6 damage to you, and you do 6 damage to them. Well, you've effectively sort of like mutually taken each other out there. Like you're both very wounded, and no one's really won it. But imagine then you just reset back to 7 wounds. Well, actually, that sounds pretty good to me. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah, it's a double whammy, because they get so many opportunities to mutate, and when they mutate, they become so violent. But the fact that they can do that in combat, and it's almost like a free fight, like you've said, you've just slaps on for damage. There's normally a bit of penalty in melee. It's a bit of give and take, but then you've just regenerated to full health. Maybe that's a bit unfair. Maybe that's the first clue as to where we could try and tweak these guys. Perhaps it's just D3 back or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think the full health generation, and actually when you go to a torment, it's even worse than that because you actually go up in wounds, so you become stronger having come out the other side of the melee, which is pretty wild. I think it is a durability buff that is very significant. But that's not actually the only durability buff, which I think is the next problem, right? And we've talked about this before. We talked about Feel No Pains and how strong and impactful they are. But I just want to sort of just talk again through a little bit of the understanding of what a Feel No Pain actually means. So if you have a 5-up Feel No Pain, you might think, okay, that's going to give me an extra 30% wounds, which on the face of it is true. But in actual application, it's not. So if you imagine that if you add 30% wounds to your character, you would go from, let's say your 7 wound model, whatever it is, you're going to go up to, let's say, 10 wounds. Well, actually, those wounds, they can be saved again. So you can then save the additional 3, you save another one. So you actually get 4 wounds. And there's a chance that you can save that 4th wound again to get 5 wounds. So when you do the maths over a larger data pool, like maybe a team of 15 models, which is a huge amount of models to have, you suddenly start to see that actually looks more like a 50% durability buff, which is why it's such a problem. Because in big 40k, where we've seen it in the past and more commonly, the wound pools are much smaller, right? Maybe your toughest model in the game, like your HQ model, might have a 5-up Feel No Pain on, let's say, 10 wounds or something. If it's a really big model, well, we're seeing that they have multiple models with 10 wounds plus with a 5-up Feel No Pain, and multiple models with 7 wounds and a 5-up Feel No Pain, rather than having it on, say, a Terminator with 3 wounds, right? So the scales of magnitude shift significantly when that wound pool increases. So I think that to me, like, it makes them far more durable than they should be. Just from a wound pool sort of thing. So this is very similar to what Gellerpox were, where you have to have this massive damage check, right? Like, can you do enough damage to take this team off the table in a timeline that works before they've played the objective and beaten you? But that'd be pretty bad as is, right? Like, if you just had all of that, that'd be quite a lot of durability to deal with. But they've actually given the team more durability, so it's like, okay, right? So they've got that's pretty cool. But imagine then you had like an icon that could give you like an aura of -1 damage. So suddenly, like, you look at your 7 wound Feel No Pain model. Actually, that's probably, you need to think of it as a 10 wound model, right? So you need a plasma gun to be able to kill that guy. So you want base damage 5 and you get 2 hits through. That's going to be enough to put that model down. Okay, well, what if now your plasma gun is actually only doing 4 damage? Well, now actually you probably won't kill them with a plasma gun, because actually you're going to do 8 and they're going to Feel No Pain, save it, and then be left with a couple wounds remaining. And it's like, right. So now even one of the strongest weapons in the game from shooting point of view doesn't have the strength, the raw ability to kill that model that turn. Now, obviously, that's not game-wide, it's not board-wide, but that means that they can protect the models that they care about where they need to, and really reduce the effectiveness of shooting weapons and also melee weapons nearby. So that's pretty difficult to deal with.
You have to kill them, right? Because if you leave them on 1 wound, that's no good, because they're just going to mutate and come back at full health.
Absolutely. And that's the next problem, right? So it's like, even if you go through this whole process where you get through their defense dice, you get through their -1 damage, you get through their 5-up Feel No Pain, and you leave them 1 wound remaining, it's not good enough. Because as you say, boom, next turn, they're just going to bring them straight back with more wounds than they had just then, and they become more of a problem and more of a threat. And that sort of leads us into another durability element that people may be slightly overlooking. But we saw this actually with Illithidian Starstriders, and it's the ability to not know where the threat is until it's a threat, right? So Star Destroyers had this with their orbital assets, the privateer assets, and everyone sort of said, oh, it's really bad that you can only use the Architect beam twice per game. It's like, yes, but you might only use a plasma gun once per game. If you move them out, shoot, lose initiative, and they die, well, you've only got one use out of that weapon. But with these guys, they can bring a torment in almost wherever they need it. So you don't know where that threat's going to appear until it's there, and it can be pretty flexible, right? So they can guarantee basically getting torments if they play slightly defensively, and they can put mutants in the right places so that you're spending your entire time doing like whack-a-mole, and you're also not playing the jet at this point. You're just trying to stop them from getting to a point where they can do too much damage to you. So you don't know where it's going to come from until it's there, and then suddenly, boom, you've got a mutant that's attacking you in one place against a weak melee guy, and you've got a torment somewhere else that's taking on someone else, and etc. etc. So that's another element of durability that is very difficult to deal with. So we then look at like how you would normally go about countering this sort of team, right? Because there is a bunch of stuff that's in our toolbox. Let's say if you're fighting Beastmen and Galapox, the standard stuff that I'm going to recommend is APL manipulation, because they're a 2 APL team. Can you put some stun out there? Can you remove APL from models? And can you use a bit of like move blocking, a little bit of intelligent barricade play to slow them down and stop them being able to get to where they can go? Or can you injure them so that they can't get the distances that they need? So that's great. So let's like look at how they're going to deal with those problems. So if only someone had given them like a ploy to be able to fight for free. So that now you as a Legionary player, maybe you hand out your -1 APL against one of their models, and you go, right, sweet, I've paid a CP to shut down that torment's threat this turn, and they pay a CP, free fight, they charge you, fight you, and suddenly all your hard work is for naught, which again can be pretty frustrating. And then let's look at some of their mobility. All right, so they can ignore traverse, and they can get +1 to their move. So if they're winged, they can suddenly be flying around the map, and you can't like zone them out anymore with barricades because they're just going to fly straight over it. And they have that extra 1 inch so that they can match threat ranges. So if you're trying to play, let's say, rapid intercession or something like that, and you're trying to say, well, I'm going to kite you, I'm going to stay out of your range, but I'm going to move in and do what I need to on my turn. Well, you're not. Like they're now more movable than you. So this is kind of like where I'm coming at from the point of view of they're just slightly too durable. I say slightly too durable. They're way too durable for what they should be. And that can be a real problem. What do you think, Connor?
I was thinking, that APL manipulation, like, and they can counter it quite nicely, and they got ways to do it. I was just thinking, as you spoke about it, I suppose if you focused your APL manipulation on the regular troops, because the other guys, what that'll mean is they'll still be offensive to you, they'll still charge you and fight you, but then they're not playing the objective either, because they'll have to choose to move or tap, that sort of thing. It's not really helping though, but it's something to think about before they get there.
So it's a great point though, right? It's the okay, who do you prioritize killing? Do you kill the guys doing the missions that you want to stop them from scoring the points, or do you kill the really offensive threats that are in your face? Now, if this was like a 10 model team, I'd say you're absolutely right. You can just focus on selectively killing those mission guys, and then suddenly the problem solved itself, because they can table you, but if they've scored no points because none of their guys can do actions, well, what are they going to do? They're ruined. But with 15 models, like they can have like 10 threats in your face, and then have 5 guys just playing objectives. Like,
we've never seen that many models on the board. This is the first time it's
I mean, this is like, well, so I guess
Galapox,
but even then, Galapox had most of their models couldn't do anything, right? Like the glitchlings were nothing. The equipment was nothing. This is like this is huge, and the fact that you can have so many big threats from the torments is really quite impactful. And I guess you could, if the stars aligned, be generating like 3 torments a turn from turning point, like two onwards, whatever. If you get the right charges in the right places, which is absolutely terrifying. So
I think that's it. Yeah, perhaps put like a ceiling. Maybe if they want to keep that mechanic, perhaps just the first melee does it, not every single one mutating.
Yeah. So I think that they need to hit him with the durability, because it is far too high right now, right? So like
6+
to the point in
which
which a 6+, like that's a good starting point, probably for like a day 1 FAQ, just to quickly stop this getting out of hand too fast. Like let's do some absolute authority from the GW Inquisition and just shut this down. Because I think if not, like people are just going to be banging their head against that feel no pain constantly. And I've said this in the past, and I'll say it again. Like I personally think the feel no pains are a really like feels bad mechanic, because if you roll hot, then the person who's shooting against you hates you. If you roll cold, then you hate it. Like, and if you roll averagely, or no one ever rolls averagely, it swings one way or the other, right? So, we've
all fought that anointed model that's got 12 wounds but takes 30 wounds of damage.
Yeah. We did that the other day. We did that the other day in a Batrep. It's just like, oh, this is fine. This is fine. 10 damage. How much you take? 2. This is fine. This is totally fine.
Yep.
But that shows the point, right? It's like, I've done 10 damage to you. You've taken 2, 8 wounds remaining. Well, when I shoot you again next time, you get to save again those 8. So, which you probably shouldn't have had, and that's the point. So, but okay, so we've touched on the durability, and obviously the standard thing I'd say is, try and find a way to stun them or move block them. Well, you can't do that either. So the next thing you do in your like metric of how do you solve this problem set is, well, I'm just going to really hard play the mission, right? Like I'm going to get on the mission and I'm going to get as many points as possible. And I'm going to basically ignore killing them, ignore the threats, except I'm going to take casualties, but just really prioritize getting points. Unfortunately, the Colts have you there as well. so they've got a ploy, which effectively is it's like the Phobos Reavers terror ability, where it's called Creature's Nightmare. And if you get a mutant or a torment and you put it on an objective, you count the total APL as 1 less, right? So if you're playing like control against this team, like, oh my God, this is so difficult to be able to deal with. They're just going to sit on objectives. You're gonna have to commit more models than them onto the objectives. More models against a team that has more models than you. Interesting maths here, how that's going to work out. And you just don't have the resources to challenge them on those central points. So they can throw mutants onto these central objectives with a devotee and guarantee that they're going to take it. Like you don't have sufficient models to challenge them, unless they make a significant misplay and their models can't reach it, right? So it's so tough. So you can't alpha strike them because they've got the -1 damage aura. You can't really play them on the objective because of the way that they can manipulate it. They can also hand out -1 APL. So if somehow you do manage to get enough bodies onto an objective and you think you're actually going to make the difference, one of their psychers can just give you an APL debuff to then make sure that they keep the objective. If you do somehow get on an objective, they can chuck a mortal wound bubble on there, so you just start taking mortal wounds every turn through action as well. They have so many tools to be able to play the objective so well and be so durable when they get there, right? So that's really, really strong. But at least they're not killy, right? Like that would be the solution, because that would be ridiculous, wouldn't it? like if they had like relentless melee with rending and auto retain and loads of bodies for combat support to be able to be hitting on 2s and 3s with relentless, that'd be insane, right? Or if they had like GA2 power weapons, that'd be mental. Oh God, they didn't. So yeah, they've got rerolls, and we know what we say: dice don't kill people. Dice with rerolls do. Well, they have really good access to rerolls. They can be giving them. They have enough models to give themselves combat support to really buff the reliability if they need to, and overcome injury if they are affected by injury. And they've got rending as well, so that they can spike that crit damage. So yeah, I think that's the main points. And I guess if you're out there thinking, oh, well, maybe there's not, these guys aren't a problem. I would ask you, what part of their tool set do you think isn't good? You know, like if you're playing against them, which way do you lean to deal with this team? Because I agree that, you know, if you can be selective with your killing, if you can kill the mutants before they evolve, you can stop their offensive capability getting too out of hand. But note that they're cult agents, so I think are pretty good anyway. You know, that they're also a very effective killers. But you're then investing a lot in being able to do that. And I don't know how you do that sustainably over turning points 2, 3, and 4 whilst meeting them in that mid ground. So they're a really interesting team. I think.
Yeah, let's not forget that. I think actually make a good, like, we've painted a very oppressive picture here, and that's the vibe that we got when we asked people what their thoughts are. But also, you know, across the board, the feedback was this is a fun side. This is a fun team to play, and actually, surprisingly, the feedback was this is a fun team to play against. There's something to this team. They're an interesting, different team. They're just over-tweaked at the minute, aren't they? They're just a bit powerful.
And I think you sort of hit the nail on the head there. So like the teams that have come out recently, I love like the design idea, right? Like and this is the best thing about Kill Team is thematically it's so good, right? The designers have done such a good job at like really gripping that imagination of, you know, I'm playing against a chaos cult, and I need to get them out. I need to, you know, root them out and all this sort of stuff, or they're going to become a problem. But I love that, and it's so much fun what they've done with this team. But I think potentially they've just over tweaked slightly, which is, you know, and it's solvable. And let's be honest, in the balanced data slates, they fixed every major problem so far. Yeah. There's some teams that are still a little bit overperforming, but I expect them to get hit in the June data slate, right? Like I don't think anyone's going to be expecting them to hang around. So I have no doubt that these teams will get some attention. I would think in the next balanced data slate. I know there'll be some people that want a bit more data. I think hopefully people can see that they're already winning a lot of tournaments and they've not been around very long. I can't see that changing anytime soon. So love the idea of the team, love the thematics. I think just the raw capabilities and durability, mission play, and offensive capability just need to be dialed back a little bit. So standard things I would suggest, starting with a 6-up Feel No Pain is probably a good place to start. I think maybe with the mutants, switch to, rather than Relentless, Ceaseless. You know, hitting on 4s Relentless is very reliable. Maybe just put them down to Ceaseless. You know, just reduce that offensive capability of those mutants initially, and then leave the torments as they are, but with a 6+ Feel No Pain. That means that they're not going to be quite so oppressive in their killing and their damage mitigation. And I think with that, you could probably leave their mission play as is, right? Like I think that'd be fine, because then at least you can kill the guys on the objectives, and they're not going to be quite so likely to kill you until they become torment status, which you can somewhat deal with.
I can't remember.
Start with that, and then see where it goes from there. It's probably what
I can't remember. But is their damage buff aligned with what's happened to, like, say, Nurgle and some of the other teams that have got the -1? Is it like a 3 damage cap, or is it different? I can't remember.
I don't believe so. Let me just quickly check, because I think it's not. So it's to a minimum of 2. So
yeah, so align that. I think that was a good nerf.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Would it be better just to make that a core rule now? Like initially, I was somewhat against it, but now that they've done it sort of on various places, maybe they should just do it across the board. And that
they did with the grenades, didn't
help, right? Yeah, exactly. And also it makes it easier for people coming into the game for the first time. Like if you say to someone, hey, whatever someone does to mitigate your damage, the minimum you can take is 3.
Yeah.
Would be a pretty good place. And here's another hot take. Could we do that with Feel No Pains? Would that be the way to solve them? So you just say, you have a Feel No Pain, you can roll how many dice you want, but the minimum damage you take from every attack is going to be attack dice is 3, right? So let's say you're shooting your plasma gun with 5 damage, minimum you're going to get 3 through is a much better feel proposition than minimum you're going to be getting 0.
But seeing how much my anointed upset you the other day when I rolled so hot, I say no.
You're happy with it. You're happy with it. I bathe in those tears.
that made my whole week. That did.
Yeah, exactly. Me being like, yeah, it's totally fine. It's totally fine. It's totally fine. I love. So people aren't going to see this because there was some technical snags in the recording, so it might stay a Patreon video. Maybe we'll put it on the internet. I don't know. We'll see. But for the short term, it'll be Patreon only. But like. that whole game was the most wild game we played, and it is one of those things where I'm like, I don't think we can put this out because we didn't do any of the tactical advice. We just went like you went full werewolf turning point 1.
Why are you surprised by this?
Yeah. Well, in a way, I actually wasn't because I was like, he's going to play dumb aggressive, so I'll take Headhunter and I'll guarantee max it. And well, I won't spoil it, but. I did well on points, so.
Yes,
Alrighty.
I did well on moral victory.
So, Conor, like, if people did want to watch that bat rep, or that they like what they're listening to, and they want to give us a little bit of support, is there a way that they could support the channel for people listening out there?
Yeah, there is actually. So, obviously, since recording, we've been trying to hit that 1,000 subscribers, and we succeeded doing that today. Thank you everyone for doing that. Please continue to like and subscribe our YouTube videos. But we obviously need to have a new goal now. So we were thinking of trying to be, well, we already mentioned we're the fastest growing, or we are one of the fastest growing Kill Team Patreons out there. Currently, I think we're sitting at 55. So to time with that, we want to get to 100 Patreons, and we're going to call those first 100 Patreons the Centurions. Everyone that's already subscribed so far, they're going to be Centurions, and that's going to be our next goal. And you could be a Centurion too if you subscribe now. But why would you want to do that? Well, it'll cost you £3 a month. For us, that's enough that we could keep the lights on in Ryan's Kill Team dungeon. But for you, that's going to get you access to some exclusive Patreon-only content, as well as access to our Patreon Discord and our Patreon priority questions. It'll also get you early access to all of our vids. The other way you could support is if you want to get some of the models that we've been talking about today. If you could buy it through Element Games, and we've got our link below. If you click on that link to buy your goods, then we'll get a share of that as well.
Nailed it. I think what's funny as well is that everyone will be like, oh, right, he did a good job. It's like, well, you didn't realize that I threatened you beforehand with, like, I'm not doing any editing on this, right? Like, you have to get it first time. You're there in a flat spin panic, like, oh god, I've got to try and do this.
Done editing your mistakes.
Like, I spent so long trying to get that bat rep into a usable format. It's like, right, that's where my effort is. This is the podcast will go on. Because we need to increase the regularity of these as well. And I'm off to America next week, so I need to try and get another one in before we go. So much to do. But yeah, and I think like the main thing with the Centurions is as the channel is growing, and it's actually growing far faster than I thought it would in a lot of ways. And the Patreon especially is going that way. Is we want to sort of reward those that support us right from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think as we continue to grow, we'll set up various levels of support and give people more support based on how they support us and et cetera, and open up more things. But for those first 100, for the people that have really been there since the beginning, we want to make sure that they get access to everything that we will give everyone else all the time. So it'll be like a legacy commitment that for being that first 100, we want to make sure we really reward you, because it means so much to us how far you've got us, and it's not lost to me that we've got new microphones now, so people can hopefully hear us in slightly better quality. we've been able to record a Batrep for the first time, and we've got the lighting to be able to do that, the portable microphones to be able to do that as well. And we're getting where we need to be, and it's paying for the editing software and that sort of stuff as well. So, once again, just a massive thank you from us for giving us that support right from the beginning. It really means the world. Okay, so we looked at one end of the spectrum, right? We looked at the arguably most competitive team, or what we think are assessed to be one of the most competitive teams out there. Is there a team, Conor, that you might say is the least competitive team?
Yeah, there is. Probably not surprised to some people that Exaction Squad are having a rough time, even since the dataslate, actually. So if we look at their stats over from Hot Sauce Teddy, we can see, if we look at the last 3 months, they've only got a 33.3% win rate, and they're only occupying 1.4% of the meta. So people aren't really picking them, and they're not having a fun time when they do get picked.
Yeah. So, and again, a massive thank you, Hot Sauce Teddy, for compiling these stats for us. It's such a useful way to sort of like gauge experiences with teams, and we say regularly that the stats aren't everything, but it definitely is a good prompt for discussion, right? So it lets you reinforce what your assessment is and see what the data is based on your assessment. So it helps calibrate a little bit, which is really, really helpful. So thanks again for doing this. But the main point is that when you get to those GT events, so when you get to the 4-round plus events and the bigger events, Exaction Squad are really suffering. And I think we all know why. And it's quite simply that the more elites you play with this team, the more it hurts. On the dummy, tell me where in Session Squad touched you. The answer is all over with bolters. They really struggle into those power armored targets. And I think the way that they should be solved is that they should be able to have an ability to remove specifically tough targets each turning point. So the risk is if you buff them too far, they go from being this team that's quite good against Horde and mid-range. They actually do quite well into the elves, right? So that they go good against that, and then suddenly they become super powerful because you've buffed them in the wrong way, right? So you don't want to overbuff them where suddenly your Vet Guard players are crying because they're getting Riot Shield in the face and stun batoned in other places, so you want to be careful with the balances. So I've had a little think, and I've got a list of ideas, and I'm going to tell you why I think they should be like this, and it'll be really interesting to hear what you guys think, in the comments below. So I'll throw them out there, and you can say this is what I think, and let us know your opinions. So the first thing is going to be the execution order, which is a tactical ploy that they have for 1 CP, which lets them effectively get relentless against a single target. But there's a few caveats, which is it can only be done from your leader, and it has to be in line of sight. So the problem is let's say that you want to kill like a anointed, right, in the middle of the map. Putting your leader on turning point 1 within 2 inches of an anointed and heavy cover is a guaranteed way to lose your leader in turn 2, right? like he's not going to be around. So I think changing that from line of sight to visible would be really helpful as a way to just initially mean that you can do it from further away and get that ploy more use. I also think you should be able to use the ploy more than once. So it should be something that you can repeatedly do. And I'd actually change it from until the end of the battle to the end of the turning point. So suddenly you select a target, and then for the rest of that turn, you have relentless against one specific target that your leader can see. So that gives your opponent counterplay. They can go and kill your leader, and that's going to turn that off in future turns. Or they can, use their other models and they hide that model that's out there. But it also means if you're a Horde team, you're not going to get oppressed by this, right? Because maybe they choose your plasma gun. Well, they're going to be very, very good at killing one model in your team, but the rest of the team is largely unaffected. So I think that would be quite a good way to specifically target that elite problem set that need help with. And also that wouldn't affect any other teams that potentially borrow this team, say Inquisition Squad. So I think that'd be a useful starting point. The next one is the Malocator. So he has an ability called Veriscan, which is you can select a model that's within line of sight, and your whole team, when shooting that model, can turn a hit from a hit to a crit, 1 dice, which is really nice. But again, you have a shotgun dude that you're now putting on a vantage point to maybe get line of sight. Well, he's now not using his shotgun, so you're removing a model to be able to get the benefits, which I think probably isn't too helpful. So again, this is one where I would just change that line of sight just to visible, because then that means it's so much more useful and usable for everyone else. Now, this will affect the Inquisition squad balance because it is a model you can take in that squad. But I think that when people are talking about Inquisition at the moment, they're talking about breaches, they're talking about Kazakin, they're talking about Vet Guard, and they're not too focused on the RBT. So I think it would be a good change. It would help make them a little bit more useful. What do you think of those two, Connor?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you've broached it quite well. I do. I'm inclined to agree with you. One thing I think of when I just assess the team broadly. Well, one thing, some of their perks, some of like the core like rules of the team, almost seem specifically designed not to work against elite teams. So perhaps that's why they're struggling.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Yeah,
and then secondly, where's their AP coming from? Where's the punch? Like, could we give them some equipment? Could they have like a melter bomb just to give them a little punch to help out somewhere? I don't know.
Yeah, so they only really have a crack grenade and the grenade launcher, right? So they have two sources of AP, and
AP1.
the problem is that of AP1, yeah. And the problem is that the crack grenade hits on 3s, which is good, but the grenade launcher only hits on 4s. But this is where I do think that if you had the ability to select a model, become relentless, and change a hit to a crit in a turning point just by visibility, well, actually now suddenly your grenade launcher becomes quite reliable, and it does put out quite a lot of damage, and that will start making the elites, consider a little bit more about how aggressive they're going to play against you if they're looking at a guaranteed crit grenade coming down range towards them. It might make them a little bit more hesitant just to run out there and try and punish you, because that's the main thing at the moment, as you say, is you lack the ability to punish people too well. There is a few other buffs today that I've thought about, which I think might help. And I'll just run through them now as ideas, and then people can think. But note that I would not give the team all of these buffs. Like, I think you want to choose a few and then go, yeah, that works. If you gave them all of them, I think it would be a straight to a very, very strong team, which would be cool to see a team flip flop like that. But maybe we want to avoid a Hunter Clade scenario where you go from bottom tier to top tier overnight. So, but I'll talk through a few of them. But note that all of these are probably all of these would affect the Inquisition squad balance as well. So you have to be careful now when you're making these tweaks to these teams as to how it's going to affect the broader meta as well. So the next one I'd say is the Revelatum. So he's the guy with the scoped shot pistol, and currently the weapon profile is 3-1 mortal wounds 2. And this is a trend in this team, is that for some reason their mortal wounds weapons don't have synergy with crits, so you don't get any benefit for getting a crit, which is really weird because they're a team where one of their main abilities is being able to turn a hit into a crit, right? So I think that you can make them have something a bit better there. So that weapon specifically, if that became 3-3 mortal wounds 2, then effectively actually that would be really useful against an 8 wound damage breakpoint. So you'd be able to do effectively 3-5, and then that really helps with a long range threat, because that is one of the few long range weapons this team has, right? So again, that combined with a relentless heavy stubber, a relentless grenade launcher, suddenly the long range potential of this team is somewhat credible. So Intercession Squad can't just sit at the back and bolt you to death without fear of being shot. The next thing that you could also change, just to make the long range threat a bit more credible, is looking at the Marksman, right? Because his execution shotgun only hits on 3s, and every other sniper basically hits on 2s. I don't really see a reason why he couldn't hit on 2s. I think that's pretty reasonable as a thing to do. So if you did that, it would allow him to be much more reliable and effectively force through more damage. So guaranteeing 4 hits, even against a 3-up save, you're getting minimum 4 damage through is a much better way of doing it, I think. and his gun is heavy, so the other option is maybe you just make it cumbersome, and he becomes a bit more mobile, but puts out less damage than other snipers. I don't know. Like I'm sure there's a halfway house there between the two. So either make it so he can move 6 and shoot, or make it Blitz still 2, but he still keeps heavy. Just try and see where the balance should be, because at the moment he's living in the worst of both worlds, right? So he's heavy, slow, and doesn't actually put out that much damage. The next one I think is an internal balance change, but I really like, and I think it would really make fighting with the team more interesting. So they have a bunch of subductors, right? This is the guy with the shock maul and the shield, and at the moment the only way you run them is in the defensive way, right? Because they can parry 2 for 1 dice, but because they have 4 attacks hitting on 4s, which isn't very reliable. But if you parry 2 with the shield and always be able to fight first, they become pretty defensive. I think it would be nice to see that their offensive profile becomes a 3+. Just make that reliable on the offense, so that they can, if they need to, charge someone, be aggressive, hit on 3s, and actually kill someone when they need to, right? And this would help the subductors become not just defensive models, but a little bit of offensive as well. And that'd be a really nice change, I think. And it would make the internal balance feel better. And talking again about internal balance, it hurts me to say this, right? But the dog just isn't very good at the moment, right? So 3/5 relentless, or possibly relentless with one of these options. It just isn't enough like reliable damage, because he hits on 4s. So, if you want to kill a important model, like an 8 wound model, whatever, you need to try and get a crit. So you're now re-rolling lots of dice, try and fish for that crit. And with only 4 attacks, it's not great. So I think there's no reason to take him over a shotgun dude. Is my point, right? The shotgun dude is just better. So I think in that instance, you should probably change him to 4/5 melee. So then he is offensive. And people are saying, oh, no, but he's GA2, right? You can do some GA2 shenanigans with him. And that's absolutely true. You can. But the main reason why you take GA2 is the ability to concurrently do killing and mission actions, right? And this guy can't do mission actions. So he's also not going to be doing the killing for you. So it's a tough one. There is a little bit of a technical play, which I quite like, where you charge the dog into a guy, then you charge the least master into a guy, and you can loot the objective and fight with increased weapon skill from the combat support, and then you could also do the free fight with a CP. But it's like one of those things where it's like really cool in theory, but actually setting it up is more effort than the reward, I think, most of the time. 2 final things that I would suggest as options, right? I'll start with this one first, which is just changing the Vox-Signifier. So the precinct Vox relay, I think it's really cool, right? So it's effectively you give a APL out to anyone in visibility, so it's not limited to 6 inches. But I think you could do this in the same way that the Silence Comm buff is. So Silence Comm buff requires no visibility, but they get to use it twice. And I think if they could make their Vox-Signifier have 2 comms, that would be a massive boost, particularly useful against elites, but does have impact elsewhere, because it lets you change the APL control of objectives, and you can't just be bullied by 3 APL on objectives. So I would keep it as with a visual requirement to make there a very separate difference between Kazakin and RBTs, but just being able to hand out 2 APL on a turn really helps this close range team get to where they want to do, get their damage out, and do the objective, right? Which is one of the places that they're struggling in, and it lets them contest that 3 APL on objectives if they're doing, like, say, loot or something like that. And the last one, which is we saw it for Kazakin, so I guess it kind of makes sense, and just to align it a little bit, it's just giving everyone +1 wound, right? So the benefit of that is it's a 17% durability buff versus bolt weapons. It doesn't really impact Legionary though, because they have so much 4 damage base, but it is useful, right? So it does help, and it does make your melee leader credible. Him going to 9 wounds is a massive change on his damage breakpoint if you want to take him as a melee operative. And so it would just align people and make it work out quite nicely. I think it's a bit of a shame that they didn't put the shields as 8 wounds base to start anyway, because them going to 9 wounds with the shield would just completely change my opinion on them as melee operatives, and it would, their durability would just skyrocket as a result. So those are the options that I've gone through, which I think covers most aspects. As I said, not all of them, but if you sort of take that as a menu option of things you could do, you can just pick and choose some of them. Note that some of them will affect the Inquisition as well, but I think that could be a good thing to see Inquisition squads with RBTs going about. I think that's thematic and works, and that it would get them on the table more, which would be cool to see. What do you think of that, Connor? What's your thoughts?
I do like the changes. I think it also sticks with the thematic element of the team. But if we look at this as a principle of we want to focus this team on being better at elites and not making them overpowered against mid-tier and horde, how are these changes only impacting that elite game and not being overbearing in the other games?
Yeah, so I think the main changes that I would say would specifically help with the elites is a change to execution order, a change to the Malocator ability, a change to the Marksman, and a change to the Vox-Signifier. So the dog going to 4/5 melee is like an internal balance change. It's a nice thing to happen.
But does that not make him being 4/5? They're already good against the elves, as we said. Now they can
absolutely
kill on 2. Is that too much? That's the concern that I'm thinking about.
No, you're right. But my point being is that at the moment, no one's going to take him, right? So the competitive pick is not taking a dog. You just take a guy with a shotgun instead, or another shield dude, right? So you're not going to take him, which is it's a bit of a shame to see a model just like not competitively used. I think
it's a bit of a shame to see a model not painted on the shelf. Just
all right, here we go. Another hit. I'm getting to it. All right, I'm getting to it. The commandos are about to get done. I only had them years now. Yeah, okay. I'll get around to it. Yeah. So you're right. Yeah, and it has to be tailored. You have to focus it on exactly the right models and the right skill sets. Because what you don't want is an absolute menace coming out and dominating the meta. Immediately after you give them buffs. But I think choosing a few of them would be the way to go, and I would love to see that sort of happen. And then it'd be cool to see, because I think sadly at the moment, the way it stands, the competitive way to play Exaction Squad is with Inquisition, right? So Inquisition lets you bring two plasma weapons or a multi-melter and a plasma pistol, and then gives you the reliability to kill elites, which is fine, but not cool to be able to say to people, hey, you've got your brand new team, like you should play them as a different team. So yeah, I think that would be a way to fix it. Alrighty, anything else you want to throw in there, Connor? Or are we?
No, but I think I'll just echo what you said earlier, that we're giving a lot of our thoughts about Exaction Squad and the new cultists, but there's probably some stuff that we've missed, or maybe there's some stuff that you've been thinking about yourself and you think, yeah, that's bang on. Let us know. Jump into the comments and tell us your thoughts. We want to hear what the community has to say. And also, thanks everyone again. Just hitting 1,000. That's awesome. Thanks to everyone that's become patrons as well. It's really amazing how quickly and how well this community is growing.
Yeah, it's really quite humbling actually, and it's not lost on us how much support we've received. From the community, from our fellow content creators. People like Andy on Glass Half Dead, GFN Gaming. All of the casual war gamers. All these sort of guys have reached out and supported us and got us on shows to help get us to where we are, and that means a lot to us. So there is such an awesome community out there that is supporting us every day of the week. There's my local club, Jason, is out there on the Facebook page recommending us to everyone, and it's all those sorts of small things. There's act of kindness which have got us to where we are, which is not lost on us. And it means the world, and a massive thank you. And hopefully we'll keep the high quality content coming. Okay, fine. We'll keep the content coming.
We'll set our content.
And we'll see where it goes. But thank you so much for 1,000 subscribers. It really is epic. So I think that's going to bring us to the end of the episode. So hopefully you did find something new or useful whilst listening. As I said, if you did, throwing us a like would be greatly appreciated. If you want to make sure you don't miss any episodes, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get those notifications as soon as the next one drops. And it really is a good way to help a small channel like us growing as we are. And if you can't wait and you do want early access or exclusive videos, we do have a Patreon where you'll get that access to all of our content ahead of time. As always, though, and Conor's already said it, would love to hear your thoughts and feedback. So drop a comment below. Talk about how you find the Exaction Squad. Talk about how you find the Chaos Cultists. We really want to hear what you think. Thank you again, and thank you so much for listening. I'm your host, Ryan. This has been Turning Point Tactics, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.